Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on Twisted Glade, playing as the forces of the Tomb Kings against the forces of the Greenskins. Now, this map is, in my opinion, I'm going to immediately just hate on this map. I often complain about maps. I often say they're terrible, and I think this is another map that's pretty terrible. For a couple of reasons. Any faction that is more reliant on artillery basically has no place to set up artillery. There's a lot of forest, there's a lot of hills. Some players also essentially have no open area to start in, which is kind of ridiculous. But regardless, going into this one, going in as the Tomb Kings against Greenskins, I did decide to bring Grandpa Katep, and you might be wondering why. Well, the simple reality is Grandpa Katep has a cool little item here. It's called the Lich Staff, which does basically nothing except increase ability recharge time by 15 seconds. Now, in most abilities, this is not too significant, because most abilities, whether it be and this happens whenever you cast, but most abilities, because their cooldown isn't that long and they cooldown on their own, this isn't that significant. But for orcs who have Wa, this is an incredible debuff, and this is why I think Katep has a great niche in this matchup as actually a very powerful and competitive lord choice, despite everything. He's also dirt cheap, which is nice, and he's got some pretty good spells. So we've got a Bound Sandstorm, we've got Arcane Conduit, Usef's Incantation of Desiccation, Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance, as well as Neru's Incantation of Protection, just to be able to spam our trait Restless Dead more often. And most importantly, spam the Lich Staff as well, to make sure that my opponent, no matter what, will not be able to proc a Wa. For the rest of this army, it's actually pretty melee heavy, and that is because I know that my opponent will not be able to get a Wa, or I'm hoping to deny my opponent the Wa. We've got a front line of Skeleton Warriors, as well as 2 Skeleton Spears on the flanks. A front line, or a main line of Tomb Guard, 4 units of them. These guys are respectable. With their high melee defense, even Black Orcs will really struggle to land hits. Fun fact of the day, Black Orcs only have 36 melee attack, and Tomb Guard, with the buff from Katep, are up to 46. That means Black Orcs hit something like 20% of the time. It makes it pretty hard for them to chop through Tomb Guard. And they are backed here by 2 Hydro Titans, who are going to be providing me with my AP point defense, essentially. These guys can really club down Black Orcs over time, especially with the backing of an Necrotect, who, of course, because we're doing this sort of Death Ball build, the Necrotect is actually able to provide his AoE armor upgrades. He's able to provide that missile resist, which is actually going to be very crucial because most of the Greenskins' counter to large comes from missiles. He's going to be able to buff their melee attack, their armor piercing, and of course he's debuffing enemy melee attack and debuffing their flame resistance, which is going to make these Hydro Titans even more effective. And when 570 weapon strength gets augmented by another 22%, that is pretty crazy stuff. It gets pretty insane. Finally, in the back, we do have the Oshapti Great Post here as a single sniping and harass unit, as well as to zone off enemy archers potentially. Grandpa Katep, by the way, is on a chariot, and I say this often. I think heroic chariots are the way to go if you have the option over normal chariots, simply because they tend to kill entire models, and not necessarily that important against orcs, but definitely you can, who don't have healing, but still I think very valuable. For my opponent's build, he decided to go rather wide, knowing that he probably has to shut down my backline, but also he's brought a lot of Black Orcs. So going over my opponent's build, he did decide to bring Wurtzag. Not a bad lord choice at all, pretty common choice in fact. And Wurtzag's got quite a few spells, but immediately you can see he's being hit by Lich Staff, which is going to reset his Wa. So he's got Here We Go, he's got Wa, he's got Effigy, he's got Get Back Here, Fists of Gork, and Edbutt, which is an interesting choice. You don't see that very often, but he also has Bonewood Staff, as well as Squiggly Beast, Warpaint, and all that sort of stuff, all those lovely shenanigans. He's also going in alongside multiple Black Orcs, 4 units in fact, and behind them a large firing squad of Savage Orc boys, as well as the Rusty Errors. For support, for cavalry support, he does have 2 Goblin Big Bosses, both of which are mounted on spiders. Or actually, I lied. One of them's mounted on a wolf, one of the other one's on a spider, and then a single unit of Orc War with big guns. Finally, in the back here, or in the woods, we've got Mogreb's Mangy Marauders, Death Creepers, and then 3 units of Forest Goblin Spider Riders to interdict my backline, harass constructs, and that sort of stuff. Now, one of the important things to keep in mind here is, and I don't personally think the Goblin Big Bosses are actually that good of a choice. They used to be a bit of a meta pick back in the day, because they were a relatively cheap way to bring poison and extra leadership, because Greenskins were fairly susceptible to Lord Sniping. But I've lately found that Greenskins don't actually struggle that much with Lord Sniping, or not as much as they used to. Definitely not if you bring Wurtzag, or if you play conservatively. And so I found that the Goblin Big Bosses don't have much of a use, so I think that's a bit of a mistake here. But otherwise, the build definitely very brutal, and we got to be careful, despite me being able to cast my Lich Staff. So the Ushapti Great Bows here are going to start setting up. They are going to start teeing off on Wurtzag, though unfortunately the Hoglord is being shielded by his pig brothers, and unfortunately those pig boys are going to be able to soak up quite a few hits here. And we are going to start deploying a bit of a box formation, a bit of a new box here on the ridge, with the spears deployed to the flank to try to hopefully screen out the enemy light cap. The shop team, in the meantime, just chipping away, doing a lot of damage to Wartag, who's my target of priority right now. Unfortunately, I do forget about the Hydro Titan's spells, which is a bit of a mistake. I could have been hitting him with Spirit Leech at this point and a Shem's Burning Gaze while this Wartag was staying still, but unfortunately we're not doing that, so big mistake, big misplay. Elsewhere though, Grand Hierophant Ketep is getting hit by the Effigy of the Git, which is going to do quite a bit of damage and more importantly root him in place for these harassing troops. But unfortunately for my opponent, we are going to get the Skeleton Spears in here. We're going to hit Grandpa with an Ares Invitation of Protection. So despite taking quite a bit of burst of damage in there, we are going to be able to protect him, preserve him, and get him clear. In the meantime, a Sandstorm is going to go down here on the Black Orcs, not really doing all that impressive damage and actually meandering a little bit into our own troops. But fortunately, because this front line had these Skeleton Warriors, there's not much to friendly fire, and that's a bit of an advantage, not suffering the friendly fire damage there, or not really caring about the Skeleton Warriors. And now the engagement is really coming down. The Tomb Guard are going to push in. My opponent's charge was largely broken up by the Hydro Titans and the Skeleton Spears. And Grandpa Ketep is in the fight here, racking up the kills. And you can see already, because he's not mounted on his chariots, he's up to 13 kills. And this is an uninspiring lord if I ever saw one, as far as melee stats go. 350 weapon strength, no AP, terrible melee attack, and I'm honestly not sure what his bonus for his infantry is. Probably like 15 or something. Oh, it's actually 28. I lied. But regardless, not ideal for killing Black Orcs, but nonetheless able to do a lot of damage. Now, unfortunately, Irigo is going to go down, which is going to make these guys much better at mulching through my troops. But we will have to endure. We are debuffing them a little bit with the help of the Necrotect. And of course, the Higher Titans are hitting like absolute trucks. Unfortunately, though, my opponent's firing line here is coming online. You can see the Savage Rogue Airboys and the Rusty Arrows coming online. And his cavalry is able to compromise my backline. We do get an Arrows Incantation of Protection on these Ushapti, trying to keep them alive. But now there's the Baconators in there. We've got 3 units of Force Goblin Spider Eyes in here. A huge overcommitment. These guys only cost 1,100, and there's like 3,000 resources, or I don't know, maybe like 2,000. No, definitely almost 3,000 resources being used here to tie down the Ushapti Great Bows. But they are shut down. They're not able to shoot any longer. Unfortunately, the Higher Titan here is getting shot down, but fortunately, and this is the nice thing, because we are doing this bit of a new camping strat or a new defensive strat, we've got our Necrotect here. And he is able to support these Higher Titans with Restore. He's providing them with that extra missile resistance, with that extra armor, which is compensating a little bit for the Rusty Arrows debuffs. And these Higher Titans are just tanking this damage like champs. And the simple fact of the matter is, these Orc Airboys are going to run out of ammo eventually. Ogre's Ranging Marauders are already down to about half ammo. Death Creepers have nearly no AP. And if my opponent even is not able to kill even one of these Higher Titans, he is in deep trouble. And his first Black Orcs are starting to fall apart and run, which is huge. Grandpa Ketep is in here raking in the kills, really tearing through these guys. The Titans are not doing that much killing-wise, but they're doing a lot of damage. You can see they've almost gained a Chevron. At least one of them has. Here, I do try to drop a Sandstorm to damage these troops, but it does almost nothing. That was really disheartening and actually pretty disappointing in an unanticipated manner. But elsewhere, you can see the Ushapti here bogged down against the Baconators. They're kind of getting slaughtered, but the Baconators are actually going to be forced to rout, because the Skeleton Spears are actually... The thing is, the Baconators, because they're very low melee defense, they're very susceptible even to crappy spear units because of their low melee defense and low armor, which is being debuffed further here by something, I think, actually friendly fire from the Rusty Arrows. So a little bit of a disadvantage there. But in the meantime, the Higher Titans here are going to swagger over to this Goblin Big Boss and really start teaching him a lesson. The Spider Rider's trying to dive in to help, but really this is not where he wants to be in life. You can see the curse coming down from Grandpa Ketep, melting these troops in an AoE. The Baconators getting wrecked. And despite my opponent's best efforts, the Higher Titan is holding strong. You can see we're going to hit it with another Restore, and it's actually just tanking through. And the ammo is really starting to run low. The Ogre's Ranging Marauders down to about a quarter. Rusty Arrows literally almost out of ammo. Savage Rogue's down to about half. And we're constantly harassing. We do try to get a Shem's Burning Gaze over there, but unfortunately it doesn't go off in time. It actually does go off there, and you can see it's actually do very little. It's probably one of the crappiest spells I can think of right now. But unfortunately over here, the Tomb Guard is going to get caught up by these very angry Black Orcs, and it's going to get wrecked. They actually do take some of these Black Orcs down with them, though. You can definitely, they're no pushovers. They do have some solid weapon strength, and as these units are getting very tired and exhausted, their armor's less significant, so the low melee defense is going to come back to bite the Orcs in the rear. Now, taking an overarching look at this point, you can see the Mounts of Power shifting pretty decisively in my favor. These spears getting a little overextended, but we don't really care too much. We're going to be able to pull back pretty shortly. Grandpa Katep, he's still pulling along. There's some Brain Burst that's going down, doing some damage, but we are going to get our Shopti summon thanks to that. Wordsack can't play too risky. He can't really go into melee. And so all in all, we're doing rather well. And you can see the Katep here is going to roll through like an absolute boss, wrecking these Black Orcs, summoning Ushapti, and now he's going to be able to get into these Rusty Airs and really start chewing them down. And he just does so much damage here on his chariot. Definitely don't underestimate those heroic chariots. In the meantime, the Ushapti here are going to start pursuing the Savage Orc Air Boys, who are the last major unit with any ammo left. The Mogrov's Raging Marauders, even if they weren't firing through the woods, probably couldn't even take down one of these Titans with their remaining ammo. Simple fact of the matter is this Higher Titan just has way too much HP. This one has 6,700. We're going to hit it with an Ares Incantation of Protection here because it is being focused by those archers. And it takes almost no damage. Wurtzag is somewhere in full retreat. You can see the spears here actually holding out rather well. And at that point, my opponent is simply going to GG out. Now, I think this build demonstrates a few things. One, chariots are amazing, and heroic chariots are amazing. Grand Hierophant Katep, literally one of the worst melee combatants in the game, is able to rake in dozens of kills, nearly 100 kills. Most of those against high-value targets such as Black Orcs, by being mounted on a chariot. And a lot of this damage is not even being done in a cycle charge manner. It's basically just sitting in a fight, grinding it out. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing, really, the Higher Titans are still very strong in this matchup. Greenskins don't have many tools to take them down. You've got a lot. One of the benefits with Higher Titans, you can play much campier. You can essentially just bunker down, use those Higher Titans as an anchor, backing up your Tomb Guard, and slowly but surely mulch through your opponent. And my opponent, despite throwing literally everything he had at these guys, well, except maybe the Warbow Big Guns, because he wasn't able to get rid of the Tomb Guard, but that's another issue. Despite literally firing every arrow, every projectile weapon at these guys, he was not able to destroy them. The Necrotech was just keeping them alive. He was helping them with Restore. He was protecting them. We were getting Ares Incantation of Protection off. And these poor archers, and there was quite a bit of arrow pressure. There was Savage Orc Air Boys, the Rusty Airs, there were Mogrov's Raging Marauders, Death Creepers. Despite their best efforts, they were just not even able to kill one Higher Titan, much less two of them. From my opponent's build, or for his perspective, I personally am not a big fan of bringing too much in the way of archers against Tomb Kings, believe it or not. I actually find that you're often better off relying on Savage Orc Big Guns or Savage Orc units in general, because you can get a quick shock and awe charge, mulch units like Tomb Guard relatively quickly, and then plow onto the back line. You can also surround and beat down units such as Higher Titans relatively effectively, and support them with a significant amount of cavalry. I still do think Wurtzag's a good choice. I personally would not invest in Goblin Big Bosses. I don't really think they're worth it. I think if you're really looking to harass and annoy the back line and all that sort of stuff, I think, one, like I said, I'd say you go bigger, bring Savage Orcs instead of Black Orcs. You really don't need Black Orcs for this. Two, dump the Forest Goblin Spider Eyes, get some Wolf Riders in there. They're cheaper, and will basically do just about as well against the units you need them fighting. And personally, I wouldn't really bother with the archers. They can work, Mogrov's Raging Marauders especially, and to an extent the Rusty Airs, but I find that you're often better off just trying to win it out in melee, as suicidal as that can sound. It can be difficult for sure, but your options are kind of limited, and I think trying to break enemy troops with just raw arrow pressure can be difficult, at least when it's two Higher Titans. Regardless, good game to my opponent Ivar here. He was in one of my recent casts as well, and I think it was Bretonnia against High Elves, but very well played. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, do not hesitate to ask or post or whatever. I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.